Welcome back for episode 3. This week we're going to be breaking down the evolution of locks in England during the 18th and 19th century. This week's definitely a good one. It's got a lot of interesting pieces and a few key characters in the development of some important and influential locks even used today. So strap in, hang on, and let's get going. From our last lesson until now, not a whole lot of innovation was happening. That is, until the 18th century. As time went on, cash incentives and honors were offered to those who were capable of picking open newer and more complex locks, so naturally, as the number of pickers went up, so did the need for better locks. At the front of the new wave of lock designs came 3 important Englishmen, Robert Barron, Joseph Bramah, and Jeremiah Chubb. In 1778, the first major improvement to warded locks was made by Robert Barron as he added a tumbler aspect to the wards to increase security. The double-acting lever-tumbler lock that he developed was more secure than almost every other lock at the time, and the same principles of his design are used in lever-tumbler locks today. The use of wards and levers in the lock meant the keys had to be multifunction, one for the wards and one for the lever. If the wrong key was used, the tumblers could not be raised to the right height, and the bolt stump would restrict any movement of the bolt. Barron's lock certainly made improvements on the issues with earlier lever tumbler locks, as he ended up adding up to 6 separate double levers to each lock. He believed it was nearly impossible to open without the right key, but soon found out that wasn't altogether true. Some time after Barron's lock had been out, another Englishman, Joseph Bramah, wrote a dissertation on the construction of locks, which went into depth explaining the weaknesses of all these claimed thief-proof locks. The book pointed out many of the flaws and explained how many of them could still be opened by a specialist or criminal with previous lock and key training. Bramah did give props to Barron, though, stating he had many good points, but also revealed the lock design's biggest flaw, the uneven edges on the bottom of each lever. Knowing this, Bramah was able to use an early version of what is commonly referred to as impressioning. He could insert a key covered in wax into the lock and press it against the levers. After several attempts, you'd essentially have an imprinted wax model of the key required to open the lock. All you'd have to do is make a new one. In 1798, Bramah patented a barrel-shaped lock that had multiple sliders around the lock that were unlocked using the corresponding notches around the barrel of the key. Much like today's tubular keys, the notches on Bramah's key would vary in height, and when the right key was inserted, the sliders would line up and the barrel could rotate to the unlocked position. It was also the first lock to have a rotating lock in itself. During this time frame, burglary in England was an extensive problem, and after the dockyard in Portsmouth, England was burglarized in 1817, the British Crown offered out a reward to anyone who could design and make an unpickable lock. Jeremiah Chubb took home the reward and patented his lock a year later. Jeremiah Chubb designed a detector lock with a 4-lever tumbler rim lock that used a barrel key. One of the improvements over Bramah's lock was that of a metal curtain that would fall across the keyhole when the lock began to turn, making it very difficult to pick. Chubb's second addition was a detector lever that would indicate if the lock had been messed with. A pick or a wrong key would raise one of the levers too high for the bolt gate. This movement would engage a separate pin that locked the detector lever. The only way to clear the detector lever was to insert the right key, turn it backwards, and then turn it forward. Chubb was highly regarded because of his lock. It is even recorded that a convict who was a previous lockmaker believed he could pick the lock as he'd easily picked open several other locks. He was given a lock, tools, and key blanks, as well as several incentives. Chubb offered him £100, which is roughly $3,300 today, and the British government even offered him freedom if he could pick it. After months of trying, the convict gave up, saying that it was the most secure lock he'd ever come across, and said it'd be impossible for anyone to pick. A few improvements were made to the lock by Jeremiah's brother Charles and Charles's son John. They added 2 levers and false notches on the levers. The lock remained unpickable until 1851, when American locksmith Alfred C. Hobbs attended the International Industrial Exhibition in London. There, Hobbs picked open both the Bramah lock and the Chubb lock in less than half an hour. All right. We should be done talking about Europe for right now. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment something you found interesting in this week's lesson. Next time, we'll break down the development of locks in America.